Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. I've been away from YouTube in recent days, unexpectedly, because my poor little pet peeve, pictured on your screen right now, unfortunately was injured. She was jumping in the back of my SUV, and the jump didn't quite take. It's something she's done the whole time I've had her. I've had her 8 years now, ever since she was big enough to jump that high anyway. Just innocently jumping in as we've always done a million times before, and it just didn't stick. She missed the landing, fell backwards, and broke her paw. And I knew instantly something was severely wrong because I've never heard her yelp so loud in her entire life. It was clearly tremendous pain, and then instantly she's got that rear leg up and not touching the ground. And then I looked at it, and I'll spare you most of the graphic stuff, but it didn't look pretty. It was gnarly looking. It was definitely gnarly looking and crooked, and I knew it was obviously a very serious injury at that particular point in time. And so it was a whole thing, and it was about a little after 5 a.m. at the time that this happened. And so I found the only 24-hour emergency vet service that was open. So drove her out there. It was a whole thing. So they got her in a splint. She's in the cone in the picture, as you can see. But I knew right then, obviously, I was definitely not in the right headspace to be doing anything with crypto or YouTube that day, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, it's been even more complex since then than I anticipated, with the constant pain that she's been in. Although it's certainly the cocktail of meds that the vets gave her certainly have helped, multiple medicines. But excuse me. But she also had an adverse reaction to one of the medicines, and so we had to remedy that. And I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible and as non-graphic as possible, but she's been very sick as a result of that as well. So I've been taking care of her constantly on top of everything else that one has to do in life. So she is going to need a surgery, unfortunately, and that probably won't be a surprise after what I just told you. They just have her in the splint for now. So I had I had the first consultation. I got one scheduled the other day, and the first consultation was today at a place. And I get there, and they're like, yeah, sorry, we don't have the medical expertise necessary to perform this particular operation. I was like, oh, could you not have told me that based on the x-ray? Because she was x-rayed before arrival, and those files were transferred over. So I go over there and then spend the morning doing that. So I've got another consultation coming up in a couple days, and I was already told that they can definitely do it, and it's going to be, and it's a big operation, and including the hospital stay in the operation, I was told it's probably going to be $5,000 or $6,000, but my sweet girl's worth it, and it shall happen, of course. I got sick to my stomach though the first day, right when the injury happened. One of the doctors, and I guess she was just doing her job, but she brought up the possibility of amputation, and I was just like, whoa, why are we jumping to that? Whoa. Stop the gravy train here for just a second. That's absolutely not something that I'm even going to consider here, unless there were literally no other option, which is not the case. So the good news is she's expected ultimately to make a full recovery, but even after the surgery, there's going to be a bunch of physical therapy separate from everything else that I just described, and I'm not sure how intense that's going to be. I just know that it's going to be required. But at the time that I'm recording this video, I will happily report that she is currently laying under my desk, and she seems to not really be in pain anymore, and she's actually kind of gotten used to hobbling around on 3 legs instead of 4 for the time being, because you can't really use that leg right now. So it is what it is. So anyway, that's why I've been gone. I thought I'd provide a little bit of an explanation because this is a bigger gap than normal. And for those on Twitter, you may have already known why, because I did tweet about this. But for those of you that just exclusively check out the Moon Family Sedan channel and anything happening to me specifically on YouTube, I hadn't posted anything. So I thought I'd at least take a few minutes here just to explain what has been going on. And I have a lot to catch up on. I do recognize that. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so let's do a little bit of catching up here. Obviously, the biggest story in the XRP community has had to do with what John Deaton brought to light just a few days ago. Everybody's been talking about this, except for me, because I haven't been on YouTube or on Twitter even after I shared that picture. But having to do with the Hinman files. Now, obviously, we did already know, and I had already covered, of course, certainly, that The Hinman files, they're coming out. Everybody already knows that. By June 13th, potentially could be a little bit sooner, wouldn't count on it. So let's just assume that it actually will be June 13th. So a couple weeks or so. What the hell day is it? Is it the 25th? It's the 25th. So yeah, we got a good 2.5, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And as far as what was unearthed here, and I'll assume that the vast majority of you are already aware, because that's all that everyone's been talking about the last few days. I mean, this headline says it all from the Crypto Basic. SEC versus Ripple. SEC emails suggest XRP is not a security. So there are a few things that I wanted to kind of straighten out here. I think that for some, there's actually still some confusion as to what this is and what it means. And Attorney John Deaton, he actually ended up noting that, because he initially thought that what was unearthed here came directly from the SEC, but then upon further analysis, he recognized that it was an outside source, but that doesn't mean it's not a big deal. It's still a gigantic deal. In fact, he said that this existing as it does, and it is part of the Hinman emails, by the way, just to be clear, that's why he said it is, quote, damaging as hell, end quote. And I'm going to give you full context for why he said that as we go through this video, as I always do. But is it a big deal? Yes, absolutely it's a big deal, even though it wasn't an SEC official that said that. If it were an SEC official that said that portion, then we wouldn't know that at this particular point in time because it's part of the Hinman emails. But again, this was sent because it was written by a third party of some kind. It's in the Hinman emails. We know that. That's a fact. So what do you think, that was just sent out and then nobody had anything to say about it? This is probably very gigantic, frankly. And I know that Ripple, even though they've had the Hinman email since last fall, all they could say is things like, yeah, it's shocking, and when this all comes out, it's just going to blow people's minds, stuff along those lines. I can't help but wonder, is XRP actually mentioned here like by SEC officials in terms of their perspective on this? I don't know, but I would not be surprised if the answer is yes. Now, in a live stream today, which I was able to catch, I just wasn't there live for it, Attorney John Deaton noted that it's possible that if you're talking about separate from the emails where it's just the SEC officials trying to figure this stuff out, separate from that, it could be the case that in the first draft of the Bill Hinman Ethereum free pass speech, in the very first draft, I mean, we're going to see that. We actually do know. Attorney John Deaton made that very clear in this live stream today. We are going to see that. So the question is, was XRP in the initial draft? Now, that would be mind-blowing. Attorney John Deaton does not think that's the most probable outcome. He doesn't think it's likely that would have been included. That's what he said today. But in terms of would there be additional conversation just surrounding the Hinman emails outside of the draft, well, we already know that they were referenced. We know that for sure. So would there have been then additional conversation? I don't see how the answer could be no. I mean, maybe we get surprised when we look at it, but are you going to tell me that this was sent in and it's part of what is now known as the group of Hinman emails? It was definitely 100% brought up, and this party said, hey, doesn't look like XRP is a security. So that happened, and that didn't generate any additional conversation amongst all these people. So they just kept drafting up the dozens of different drafts for this speech, but then they just said, yeah, but we're not even going to respond to this thing having to do with XRP. They're not even going to mention it to none of them. That seems like a bit far-fetched to me. So here's an article that came out yesterday, and it does a little bit of table setting, and then I'm going to go directly into the most relevant emails from Attorney John Deaton sequentially, so that we can get the chain of thought, because he did, again, he acknowledged that, yeah, maybe jumped the gun a little bit, but that doesn't mean that these aren't incredibly relevant. And so I'm going to show you the evolution of his thought process and exactly what he said. But again, even, by the way, I did want to mention this, I'm not going to read this article, but even Cointelegraph is covering this. Now, they've never been as bad as, CoinDesk, my God, there's a reason that our community calls them FUD desk, because they historically have not been so friendly to the XRP community, posting all sorts of nonsense. There's been a fair bit of that from Cointelegraph over the years, not quite as bad as what I've seen from CoinDesk. But I just wanted to point out, it's like, it just seems like, in a general sense, people are kind of coming around and recognizing, hey, if things don't go well for XRP and Ripple, maybe everything else is screwed. So look at this headline from Cointelegraph. Everything XRP holders have been shouting has been confirmed. Pro-XRP lawyer. Can you imagine seeing a headline like that years ago? From Cointelegraph? No, not from Cointelegraph. So into this from the Crypto Basic. SEC versus Ripple. SEC emails suggest XRP is not a security. As the lawsuit between the United States Securities and Exchange Commission and Ripple approaches its end, crypto law founder attorney John Deaton recently shared a vital document that could play a major role in deciding the case. In a series of tweets over the weekend, attorney Deaton shared a page of Ripple's opposition and reply briefs. The document's footnote referenced SEC emails conceding that XRP does not satisfy all prongs of the Howey test and cannot be classified as a security. And it said, quote, "There are reasonable grounds to conclude that XRP does not satisfy all elements of the Howey analysis and is therefore not a security for purposes of the federal securities laws," end quote. Okay, so that's the most relevant portion here, and that's what kind of shot everything off in this direction conversationally for the XRP community over the last few days. And initially, as you'll see, attorney Deaton was thinking, he was thinking initially it's an SEC attorney, perhaps somebody from the SEC, and then he ended up changing perspective after thinking about it, letting that kind of marinate a little bit, and looking into it a little bit further. But in terms of it being of substantial consequence, no, that stands. That still stands here. And the article notes also, although Ripple's legal team disclosed the information last year in their opposition brief to the SEC summary judgment motion, many people, including Deaton, previously didn't know about the development. And so this may have been something, this is why he was kind of initially thinking, hey, maybe this just kind of slipped by here. But you can see Attorney John Deaton was aware of it. I mean, this is literally a tweet from January 1st of this year. And the relevant portion, which I already read from the Crypto Basic article, it's right here. It's footnote 220. And it's part of what is being known as SEC lit emails, presumably standing for U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission litigation emails. But it's part of the actual Hinman emails, though. And so, again, what you're looking on the screen right now, I don't feel the need to read it, but this is from January 1st. So Attorney Deaton knew about this. He literally shared it. There's the proof on the screen here. But he reflected upon it further a few days ago. So here you have the tweet from May 20th, and he shared his tweet from January 1st, and he wrote the following just a few days ago. Here's an analysis I did on the references Ripple made regarding the Hinman emails in Ripple's opposition and reply briefs. It is clear that things said in the Hinman email specifically contradict arguments made by the SEC. The truth is Ripple didn't rely a ton on the emails. In other words, we will learn things that are not cited in the briefs. I made a prediction 2 years ago that these emails will highlight the Hinman conflicts of interest even more. 58 drafts, 63 emails. People cautioned against giving this speech. People will ask, why give it? And that's one of the things that's always just been absolutely astonishing to me. I mean, a lot of things are truly astonishing because it's like the BS arguments from the SEC, the hypocrisy of so much of it. And then all of these officials historically say, well, I don't want to give a specific, opinion about any specific coin or project or anything along those lines. And then what did Billy Boy Hinman do? Gave specific perspective. And it was so intense, the emails, the back and forth, that it resulted in 58 drafts. Does that sound like a personal opinion to you or an official SEC effort? I know, but all they have to do is a little asterisk. This is my official opinion, just mine. It's mine, not official position of the SEC. But again, if you look procedurally how it came to be, it does not look like a personal opinion. But it is what it is. It's already been determined to be that. I got it. XRP community member Kashta wrote to John Deaton and said, I'm still betting on the emails speaking to the process of how ETH converted from a ICO/security to a non-security. XRP may have even been discussed. She must ask, in light of this, could XRP evolve too? Is the off-base John Deaton, ? And Attorney Deaton did respond, and he wrote, it makes sense, and he meant, is that off-base? He wrote, is the off-base. But Attorney Deaton then says, it makes sense that someone brought up the ICO. Hinman's speech addressed it by saying, putting aside the fundraising, some may have argued that wasn't enough and debated that when does a token convert? That's why the speech likely says the token itself isn't a security. The biggest question for me is, was XRP and other tokens brought up in the email comments? If it was, I would have expected Ripple to cite to it, but couldn't find where they did. But remember, June 13th, 2018 is the XRP Howey memo written by SEC lawyers. So XRP was raised somewhere. And folks, it's never sat well with me that June 13th, when that memo was released, again, that's the day before the Ethereum free pass speech. How could that possibly be coincidence? I think there is tons of conversation internally about XRP. And so the question is going to be, though, well, we already know for sure technically because of the memo, but I was thinking outside of that. So the question is, would it then have been, to a greater degree than we're aware of, part of the Hinman emails which are about to be released? Again, I'm with John D. I'm not convinced that it'll necessarily be part of a draft. Like, would we literally go to draft one and see XRP, ETH, and Bitcoin listed? I'm skeptical of that. Especially if Bill Hinman really was doing this for personal motives, he would have no incentive to throw XRP in there. He'd have incentive to throw ETH in, and then maybe just because, Bitcoin is obviously the first, it would make logical sense for him to lump that in. But this is all about ETH, really. So I'd kind of be surprised in a way if XRP was actually included in a draft, but not surprised if there was additional conversation about XRP in the emails. And then Deaton says, it's not a coincidence the XRP memo is dated June 13th, 2018, the day before Hinman's speech. Hence, during the December 13th, 2017 to June 8th, 2018 meetings with the SEC about ETH, XRP was on the mind. I believe the emails may prove XRP was what I called it 2 years ago, a regulatory sacrificial lamb. And then attorney Bill Morgan retweeted the comment from John Deaton and wrote the following. How many of the Hinman emails are cited and included by Ripple in its opposition and reply briefs? We get to see these once the briefs with the remaining allowed redactions are filed on June 13th. We wouldn't see those Ripple did not reference and include by reviewing these briefs. I don't see how the public gets to view all the Hinman emails on June 13th, 2023 if they are not all included in the summary judgment brief, opposition brief, or reply brief. So that certainly caught a lot of people's attention because we're wondering, okay, we're just our supposition as XRP community members is Hinman emails released, we should get everything, right? And attorney Morgan's kind of questioning, okay, but is that actually going to be the case? Well, here's what attorney Deaton said in response. I think they were included, but not all referenced in the brief in the argument. So there you go. Attorney Deaton's supposition is that everything's included, so the answer is yes, we will get to see it all. It just wasn't included in the brief in the argument. So that's why we wouldn't even necessarily be aware of that. But it shouldn't matter anyway. But attorney Deaton then elaborates on what he had been sharing recently. He said, but I missed this even though I tweeted it out. Read the footnote, Exhibit 220. And this is the one that's what kicked it all off here. And I already cited this, but attorney Deaton is sharing it again here. Exhibit 220 is part SEC emails. XRP is mentioned in that there are reasonable grounds XRP doesn't satisfy all Howey factors. Huge. And then attorney Morgan wrote, it is unbelievably positive if some of the emails show this. I bet Common Enterprise is one of the factors there where reasonable grounds wasn't satisfied. Even if not, all the Hinman emails included, it doesn't really matter as long as we see the juicy parts of the key emails. Yeah, and obviously Ripple is going to make sure, they already made sure that's going to happen, right? Because even though it wasn't up to Ripple to determine whether or not these would ever see the light of day, that was up to Judge Torres. Ripple did have these documents, as I cited earlier in the video, last fall. They already had all of this. And so, again, as long as the most relevant portions, either way, as long as the most relevant portions come out and Ripple would have included those, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be just fine. They have the best possible firm, arguably, on the planet to represent them. I don't think it's likely anything's going to slip by them. That would be my guess, especially with their gigantic team combing over it thoroughly, very thoroughly. Now, here's where attorney Deaton was expanding his thoughts on this. He says, since noticing this, I've been racking my brain about two things. Number one, why wouldn't Ripple lawyers make a much bigger deal about this and not just include it in a footnote? And two, how the F did I miss it before today? Although, to be fair, I've read thousands of pages and do have a job. Yeah, and that's totally fair. I mean, have you listening ever just read something that is, whatever topic at hand, crucially important, but the gravity of it didn't sink in? Because that's happened to me. For sure it has. And then after reading this many pages, sometimes in life it takes a second or third read of whatever the topic at hand is, and then it sinks in a little bit more anyway. But this is absolutely a big deal. I just don't blame him one bit. Either way. And then Attorney Deaton says, I think I know how I missed it. Here's the page before. Now read the sentence ending with footnote 33. The sentence says, other market participants, and that's a quote, other market participants, independent from Ripple, sent the SEC analysis of XRP, concluding XRP was not a security. That first citation is not the emails. So there he's noting that it's a third party that said what was stated there about, XRP not satisfying Howey test, that whole thing. And that's why it's not redacted. That's why we're seeing that. But the point is, and this is a key point, and I said it before, but let me reiterate it. It's part of the Hinman emails right now. It's part of that whole thread. So, again, going back, just speculating wildly here, maybe not that wildly. What, there was no response to this? Somebody just shared this from a third party, and then what? All the SEC attorneys were just zipper-lipped on it? Really? Maybe, but I'd be really surprised. And then Attorney Deaton says, then the next citation immediately following cites to SEC lit emails, which are the Hinman emails. You can go further down and see them referenced again with the redactions. Therefore, this quote appears to be from the Hinman emails. Back to my other question. Why wouldn't Ripple make a bigger deal about this if it was a statement from a senior SEC staff member? Maybe it's not a direct quote from an SEC official, but it's an SEC official referencing someone else's analysis of XRP in the emails with Hinman. Right. So we do know for sure it's not, at this point, it's not an SEC official, but an SEC official plugged it into what's now broadly known as the Hinman emails. It's there, folks. That's, yes. Then Attorney Deaton also wrote this. Read this short thread, please. When you look at all the other SEC-lit emails cited in Ripple's opposition, they are redacted. The one about there being reasonable grounds to not believe XRP satisfies all the Howey factors is not redacted. The SEC wanted all statements by SEC staff redacted, and it appears they all were. What this tells me is that the statement about XRP not satisfying Howey is not a direct quote from a senior SEC official. Otherwise, it would be redacted. I've concluded that the statement was made by a market participant independent of Ripple, not the SEC, but it was referenced by someone in the Hinman emails, or the third-party email was forwarded to Hinman or the email group discussing the speech. I always want my comments to be based on facts, so I'm making this clarification. Although it isn't a direct quote by an SEC official, it is still damaging as hell because it demonstrates XRP was discussed. Someone at the SEC passed this XRP opinion to the email group for a reason. Yeah, it doesn't just oops-a-doodles end up in there. There was thought, there was, there has to have been like thoughtful conversations on this topic. And again, like specifically within here, that would be my guess. Now, is it going to be to a big degree, a little degree? I don't know. I'd just be shocked if somebody injected this, even though it's from a third party, and then nobody has a thing to say. That's it. That would be shocking to me. That would just blow my simple little Moon family sedan mind. I wouldn't even know what else to say at that point. So anyway, I wanted to kind of set that straight because there seemed to be some confusion about what this was. There still even recently seemed to be some people thinking that it was something that it wasn't in terms of it being potentially an SEC official. And also wanted to share with you and provide some thought on some of the stuff that Attorney John Deaton said today. And I've been wanting to talk about, even though I barely spent any time looking into crypto stuff, and when I would hop onto Twitter and look through anything, it was very clear to me, like, because this just took over my entire feed, which I'm not complaining about at all. I found it just as fascinating. And so it's nice to finally be able to talk about this thing after these days. But you know what? My pet peeve is my family, and family comes first. That's to those of you out there that have dogs, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then it's okay. But I'm telling you, the way that we dog owners view our dogs is as family. That is, and so it's just been difficult seeing my little family member, my little pet peeve, go through what she's going through, and just seeing the pain that she's in, and then just because it's just a helpless feeling too. I don't have any human children, just the furry little one here. But I would imagine, even though it would probably be a bit stronger, even if it were your kid, I get it, the emotion. It must be similar to that, just that concern, especially if you have like that helpless feeling, rather, and then just seeing the complications from some of the medicine and stuff, and trying to get all that straightened out. And, you know, hopefully I can get her in for a surgery, get that scheduled, and get her all taken care of within the next couple of weeks. But then that just starts the beginning of a new chapter where she's going to have to go through physical therapy and all of that. And I know she's going to be in pain that day too. Yeah. That's life, though. You know, sometimes it just comes at you fast. It is what it is, but I'm going to take care of my girl. She is my family. And it has taken me, like I said, from YouTube for, you know, recent days. But not only could I not really focus anyway, truth be told, with everything else going on in life anyway, my focus had to be on her anyway. So I'm just glad I'm in a position where I could actually do that for her and actually tend to her. In many ways, actually. So anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I'll wrap up the video by bringing this little picture of my cute little doggo back. My 8-year-old terrier mix. She's the best. She's such a sweet-natured little dog. She really is. She's just a sweet little thing. She's always just nice and happy. I don't know. What a great dog. And she's a good-looking dog, too, isn't she? Send some love in the comments section to my pet peeve. All right. I'll stop here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.